All right, so we're in a new series titled Everything Changed. And we're getting ready for Easter. The resurrection, our faith rises and falls on the resurrection. In fact, Paul himself said that if the resurrection did not take place, we are to be pitied more than any other people. And so the resurrection is the core of our faith. Did you know that? The Bible is not the core of your faith. The resurrection is. Our faith is based on an event that took place. And so we're in this series leading us up to Easter. And we're going to talk about this idea, this truth, that everything changes. When you encounter Jesus, everything changes for you. Okay, so now I know I'm going to get some pushback here. Because even when I was getting ready for this, I want you to know as a pastor, when I start getting ready for a message, I play the devil's advocate. And I push back. And I'm like, okay, hold on here. Okay? Yes, when I put my faith in Jesus, I understand everything changed. But there are still some things that are the same. I still struggle. I still experience pain. I still experience those things that I regret. I get that, but you know what the difference is? When you ask Jesus to be your Savior, His Holy Spirit comes to take up residence on the inside of you. So now, guess what? Now, He says that I'm going to come alongside of you when you experience those things, and I'm going to help you to navigate through those. And when your strength is at its end, He goes, my power is going to be perfected. So we've been looking at this whole idea of everything changing, right? So week 1, we discovered 3 transformations. Okay, real quick, we're going to look at these 3 transformations that we looked at here. We ready to go there, buddy? There we go. Okay, the first one was instantaneous. Okay, this is connected to this old term. You don't hear it a whole lot, but it's called radical conversion theology. Radical conversion theology. That means that something radical took place. You were dead, and now you're alive. You were blind, and now you can see. You were separated from God, and now you're connected to God. Radical conversion theology. That's instantaneous. Takes place, okay? The second kind of transformation was continuous. And we looked at this big word called sanctification. Sanctification means that more and more, every single day, you're in the process of becoming more like Jesus. It's a process that's taking place. And then we looked at this last kind of transformation, eternal. Eternal transformation was when you're done here on this earth, you will be transformed. You'll get a new body, you'll get a new home, and you will experience the best life. Right? That's what's going to take place. Okay? And then we talked about 2 people so far. All right? We talked about this guy named Matthew, hated by his own tribe of people, wrote off his ability to ever connect with God, and then he encountered Jesus. And then everything changed. His label changed from hated tax collector to loved and adopted by God. And then last week, Amy talked about the Samaritan woman who had nothing to bring to Jesus. In fact, she spent most of her life hiding. And then she encountered Jesus. And if she encountered Jesus, Jesus knew all about what she was hiding, right? And he assured her that she no longer had to hide. She didn't have to hide anymore. And she could actually worship God openly now. No more hiding, no more shame. Okay? All right, so today, we're going to look at somebody who was raised pretty much without God at all. Okay? He's not Jewish. He's one of the most unlikely people that you could ever imagine amazing Jesus, is this guy. He was raised learning how to worship multiple gods. He grew up in Rome. They had lots of different gods, lots of different temples. So he was raised like that. He grew up worshiping his country. That was part of what they did there. Like Rome worship was a real thing. And so when he got older, he decided he's going to join the army. So he joined the army, rose in rank, distinguishing himself above his fellow soldiers. In fact, back then, a Roman soldier, you would rise in rank because they would have these contests. And during these contests, they would use these brutal Roman martial art competitions. And however you fared on that would help you to rise to another rank. So this guy had risen to a pretty high rank, and his resume that he has, you would never expect his resume to be somebody that would amaze Jesus and become a hero of the faith. But everything changed for this guy. So I'm going to give you the one thing this morning that this message is going to be wrapped around. Here it is. The more I admit my need for Jesus, the more my faith grows. The more I admit my need for Jesus, the more my faith grows. So we're going to pick up this story in Matthew chapter 8. Starting in verse 5, Jesus was just coming on his way back from doing some other ministry things. He was on his way back to Capernaum. And this event takes place. Starting in verse 5 of Matthew 8, it says this. When Jesus returned to Capernaum, a Roman soldier, now some translations will put the word centurion. Centurion basically means that this guy was over 100 other soldiers. Okay, that's what a centurion would do. All right, so he was over 100 different men. It says he came and pleaded with him. Verse 6, Lord, my young servant lies in bed, paralyzed and in terrible pain. Okay, so now this account takes place in two different gospels, okay? There's one in Luke, and the other one is in Matthew. Okay, we're looking at Matthew. So now listen. Matthew has a different perspective on this because he lived among the Romans. He served the Romans for years as a tax collector. So he knew how soldiers interacted with Jews. He knew how soldiers interacted with religious people. He knew what they were like. Okay? So he's giving us highlights in what takes place. Now, Luke, on the other hand, he didn't do that. So he gives us some more perspective on what took place. And so Luke tells us that the centurion sent some Jewish elders to go ask Jesus to heal his servant. Matthew, he knew how to transcribe this event. He knew what happened. Because he knew a Roman soldier would never ask a rabbi to come to his house, ever. They wouldn't even really have a conversation with a rabbi, right? So Luke says that this centurion, this Roman soldier, sent some Jewish leaders to go and talk with Jesus, all right? So they sent these Jewish leaders, and so when the Jewish leaders got there and saw Jesus, they said, this Roman soldier wants you to come to his house to heal his servant, okay? Well, as they're talking, these Jewish leaders said, in fact, this Roman soldier is actually worthy of you doing that because he actually helped us. In fact, he helped us build a church. And so the Roman soldier asked Jesus, would you come heal my servant? In verse 7, Matthew chapter 8, verse 7, Jesus said, I will come and heal him. Okay, so at that moment, what's happening is Jesus is walking on his way to the Roman soldier's house. Okay, so he's on his way. It's at this moment something begins to change forever in the Roman soldier's heart. Something begins to change. Roman soldiers are not known for being humble. They were pretty prideful people. They had pride in their ability to lord it over other people. They had pride in their country. They had pride in their ability to have control. So keep this in mind. But he had heard about Jesus. Maybe he even saw Jesus perform some miracles. So he had heard about Jesus. And so as a result of that, something is shifting, and he's starting to connect with something that all of us need to connect with Jesus. That I think a lot of times we don't. We don't. Before Jesus got to his house, so Jesus is walking to this guy's house. Before he gets to his house, the Roman soldier who is still there, because his servant, his slave, his servant, however you want to define it, he's almost dead. So he's not going to go anywhere. He's staying there. But Jesus, before he gets to his house, the Roman soldier realizes, whoa, wait a second. I cannot have him come into my house. So Luke has these other details that says that the Roman soldier asked a couple of his friends who were also there, could you just go catch up to Jesus and tell him this? Give him this message before he gets there. Listen to the message that he gives Jesus. Here it comes. Matthew chapter 8, starting in verse 8. But the officer said, this is the message, Lord, I am not worthy to have you come into my home. Just say the word where you are, and my servant will be healed. Now, when he's saying I'm not worthy, he's saying I'm not sufficient, I'm not adequate, I am not important enough to actually come to you. So he says, if you just say the word right from where you're at, my servant will be healed. And then verse 9, listen to this. I'm telling you, he gets this. Verse 9, he says, I know this because I'm under authority of my superior officers. And I have authority over my soldiers, and I only need to say go, and they go, or come, and they come. And if I say to my slaves, do this, they do it. So this pagan Roman soldier understood authority. He lived under it for years. His life was defined by authority, right? And the use of it. He came to the conclusion, listen to this, he came to the conclusion that Jesus has authority. Because here's the thing, people with true authority, they don't have to be in the same room to exercise it. Anybody ever work a job with a boss? Guess what? Your boss does not have to be in the building for him to have authority, does he? Or she, right? They don't have to be in the building. But you know, oh my gosh, I have these different things that I need to follow. Because if I don't, they have the authority to call me in their office and rip me a new one, right? I mean, they can do that. They have authority, right? And so the Roman soldier, he got this. He understood this about Jesus. He understood that people with authority carry it wherever they go. He wasn't the only one to notice Jesus' authority, by the way. One time after Jesus told the crowd about how important it was on what you build your life on, He said, unless you've got to build your life on something solid so when the storms come, you will be able to withstand it. Okay? Matthew chapter 7, verse 28. Listen to this. When Jesus had finished saying these things, the crowd were amazed at his teaching. For he taught with, here it is, real authority, quite unlike their teachers of the religious law. The Roman soldier wasn't the only one that noticed that, okay? But there was something different about him, and we'll get to that. Oh, by the way, Jesus knew he had authority too. Yeah. Listen to what it says in Matthew chapter 9, verse 6. Jesus says, so I will prove to you that the Son of Man has the authority on earth to forgive sins. Then Jesus turned to the paralyzed man and said, stand up, pick up your mat, and go home. In Matthew 28, verse 18, listen to what Jesus says. Jesus came and told his disciples, right before he went up, ascended up into heaven, he says, Jesus came and told his disciples, I have been given all authority in heaven and on earth. Even though others saw and heard about Jesus' authority, listen to this. This pagan Roman soldier was the one whose life changed because he embraced Jesus' authority. Yeah. They heard it. Yeah. He embraced it. Yeah. And it got Jesus' attention. Yeah. Listen to what this says in Matthew chapter 8, verse 10. When Jesus heard this, he was amazed. Turning to those who are following him, he said, I tell you the truth, I haven't seen faith like this in all Israel. Now, if you don't think, after he said that with this whole crowd that was following him, after he said that, if you don't think that there wasn't a big and murmurings that took place after that, says he was amazed. Because the centurion's faith in Jesus' authority, Jesus was amazed. He was marveled at this guy. The only other place where it says Jesus was amazed was when he saw the lack of faith in his hometown. And it says Jesus was amazed by their unbelief. So when I read that, and I wrote this down, I sat back in my chair, and I asked myself a question. Jesus, are you amazed by my belief or my unbelief? Jesus, are you amazed by my belief or my unbelief? And I sat there for a while. And then Jesus tells the crowd, right after he says this, he says that this Gentile soldier will be one of many Gentiles who are going to come to Jesus. And he added, like Jesus always says extra that gets people really ticked off at him. And right after he said that, he said, oh yeah, by the way, all these Gentiles that are going to come to Jesus, they're going to be at a party with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And to a Jew, they're like, are you kidding me? Right? And he said, okay, and then he ramped it up a little bit more after he said that. He said, then those who think they are grandfathered into the kingdom because they went to church their whole lives, or they're in some kind of religious culture, but they don't have faith in Jesus, they're going to end up in hell. Slam, slam, slam. Oh my gosh. One thing after another. And then, verse 13. Then Jesus said to the Roman soldier, go back home, because you believed it has happened, and the young servant was healed that same hour. Okay, stop. Okay, so we're going to look at this part right here. Because you believed. Okay, we're going to stop there. Okay, I've had numerous people, I'm telling you. I've had lots of people come up to me and go, hey, yeah, you know what? I'm so glad here. I tell you what, I believe in Jesus. I believe. And here's my question. Here's my question. Believe what? Believe what about Jesus? Do you know what the Roman soldier believed? He believed that Jesus had authority from God. He believed it. He could put his trust in Jesus' authority. He could trust the words of Jesus. Do we? Do I? Because for him to get to this point, he had to admit some things. Just like we have to admit some things. First thing he had to admit is that he didn't have all the answers. You ever have a situation where you don't have all the answers? Oh gosh. Right? He had to admit that. He also had to admit he was powerless to change the situation. There was absolutely nothing he could do. He had to admit that he needed somebody with authority to intervene. He had to have somebody with authority who could actually make a difference. And the fourth one was he had to admit that he could trust Jesus' authority. We can trust Jesus' authority. So we're going to sing this last song. I want you to ponder that question because I've been pondering it all week. Jesus, are you amazed at my belief or my unbelief? Right, Nate? So let's sing this last song and then I'm going to close this, okay?